Hey Stoic warriors, I'm welcome back. I hope you all are standing tall, not just surviving, but facing whatever life has placed before you with quiet strength. Today's video isn't about morning routines or easy motivation. It's about transformation, the kind that burns away weakness and builds something unshakable in its place. We're diving into 10 things you must improve every morning if you want to command your day instead of being dragged by it. This isn't about chasing perfection or polishing an image. It's about how you shape your mind when the world is still asleep. It's about the silent preparation before life begins demanding from you. Because how you rise in those first unseen hours determines who you'll be when chaos tests your resolve. The clock reads 4:23 a.m. The world hasn't stirred yet. The streetlights stand like weary sentinels, guarding the edge of night. Somewhere between your last dream and your first conscious thought, you're suspended in that strange, weightless space. Neither the man you were yesterday nor the one you're about to become. The ancient Stoics had a name for this state. Kenosis, the emptying. Most never face it. They run from it. They reach for their phones, for music, for anything to drown out the stillness that forces them to see the truth, that another day has come, and they're still standing in the same place, wearing the same fears, making the same promises. Marcus Aurelius knew this feeling well. Alone in his military tent on the frozen frontier, surrounded by sickness, death, and the endless ache of duty, he wrote by candlelight, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Those weren't words for us. They were a man's desperate attempt to keep himself from collapsing under the weight of his own exhaustion. That same weight sits in your chest right now. But it isn't anxiety. It's awareness. You're feeling the gravity of rebirth. The person who went to sleep last night no longer exists. The one hearing these words is being sculpted right now, thought by thought, breath by breath. The morning doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your pain, your tiredness, or your excuses. It arrives, pure, cold, and merciless, offering you one gift, the chance to rise again. Most ignore it. The wise embrace it, because the morning is not about doing more. It's about dying better. Dying to your distractions, dying to your weaknesses, dying to that quiet, poisonous comfort that convinces you to stay the same. Each dawn, you stand at the edge of two futures. In one, you surrender to habit and fade into noise. In the other, you become the architect of your own awakening, carving yourself from stillness, choice by choice, breath by breath. The distance between those two futures is only a moment. One decision before sunrise. One act of will before the world begins to demand your attention. If you're still here, still breathing through this silence, then hit that like button, not for me, but as a promise to yourself. Subscribe to this channel, share it with someone who's forgotten the power of beginning again, and write this in the comments. I am the architect of my own awakening. Because you are. And the morning is waiting. Now let's get into it. Number 1. The ceremony of sacred rage. Anger. They told you to suppress it, manage it, breathe through it. But Seneca knew something electrifying. The greatest remedy for anger is delay, not elimination. Delay. Because morning anger, properly alchemized, becomes the fuel that could power 1,000 suns. The Stoics didn't avoid anger. They fermented it into liquid determination. Every morning, you wake up with a choice. Be politely disappointed with your life, or be magnificently furious at your own wasted potential. That burn in your chest when you realize another day passed without progress. That's not shame. That's sacred rage, the kind that built empires and toppled tyrants. Marcus Aurelius channeled his morning fury at his own weakness into governing 1/3 of the known world. What's your excuse? Tomorrow morning, instead of drowning your anger in coffee and affirmations, I want you to feel it. Really feel it. Feel furious at every excuse you've ever made. Feel rage at every moment you chose comfort over conquest. Feel the beautiful, terrible anger at the gap between your current reality and your screaming potential. Let it burn through your veins like philosophical fire. But here's where the Stoic genius emerges. Don't act from anger, act from its transformation. Take that rage and whisper to it, "You're right to be angry. We should be further along. Now show me what you're made of." Then channel every ounce of that fury into one singular morning action that your comfortable self would never take. Make the call you're terrified to make. Start the project that might fail. Say the truth that might hurt. The world wants you calm, meditated into submission. But some mornings require controlled explosions. Some mornings demand you become volcanic, not to destroy, but to create new land from the lava of your own frustration. The Stoics understood. Properly directed morning rage doesn't make you dangerous to others. It makes you dangerous to your own limitations. That person you're jealous of? Good. Let that jealousy turn into morning fuel. That life you should be living? Perfect. Let that gap create morning fire. That voice saying you're behind, you're late, you're losing? Beautiful. Let it scream you awake, then prove it wrong with actions so bold they'd make the gods nervous. Number 2. The Immortality Meditation. Close your eyes and imagine this. You died last night, not metaphorically. Actually died. Your last breath escaped at 3:17 a.m. Your story ended mid-sentence. Everything you planned to do today became someone else's responsibility or nobody's at all. The conversations you postponed are now impossible. The dreams you delayed are now deleted. You're gone. Now open your eyes. You've been given something impossible. You're dead, but still here. A ghost with a heartbeat. A corpse that can still choose. This isn't visualization. This is the Stoic practice of mortis meditatio, the morning death meditation that makes you immortal by showing you you're already dead. Epictetus taught this to slaves who had nothing, and Marcus Aurelius practiced it despite having everything. Why? Because when you start your morning already dead, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Fear can't touch corpses. Embarrassment can't reach the already buried. Failure becomes impossible when you've already experienced the ultimate failure, non-existence. Every morning, you're wrestling with the wrong question. You ask, how should I live today? When you should ask, how should I spend my resurrection? Because that's what every morning is, a temporary resurrection from the void, a brief intermission between eternities of nothingness. The Stoics knew, treat each morning like you're borrowing time from death, and suddenly every moment becomes borrowed gold. Tomorrow, before your feet touch the floor, lie there and feel yourself dead. Feel the weight of non-existence. Feel the terror of unlived potential. Feel the crushing regret of unsaid words, untaken risks, ungiven love. Let it wash over you like a tsunami of perspective. Then, when you can't bear it another second, open your eyes and realize you've been spared, not saved, spared. There's a difference. Saved implies you're safe. Spared means you're still in danger, but you've been given one more chance to matter. This isn't morbid, it's electric. When you start your morning from death, every breath becomes rebellion. Every action becomes resurrection. Every choice becomes a cosmic middle finger to the void that's waiting to reclaim you. The breakfast you eat? A dead person doesn't get breakfast. You do. The work you complain about? Corpses would kill for your problems. The life you think is ordinary, it's a statistical impossibility that you exist at all. Number 3. The ritual of reverse gratitude. Forget everything you know about gratitude journals and morning appreciation. The Stoics practiced something darker, more powerful. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Every morning, instead of listing what you're grateful for, list everything you could lose by sunset. Your health, your family, your sanity, your sight, your freedom, everything. Seneca did this while owning half of Rome. He'd sit in his marble palace and imagine it burning. He'd look at his wealth and imagine it seized. He'd touch his own skin and imagine it diseased. Was he insane? No, he was building psychological antibodies against life's inevitable ambushes. When Nero eventually took everything from him, Seneca laughed. He'd already lost it 1,000 times in his mind. Tomorrow morning, practice reverse gratitude. Don't count your blessings, count your potential losses. Feel your legs and imagine them paralyzed. Look at your hands and imagine them arthritic, useless. Listen to silence and imagine deafness. This isn't pessimism, this is armor building. You're teaching your nervous system that you can survive anything because you've already survived it in the laboratory of your imagination. The paradox will crack your skull open. The more you imagine losing everything, the more passionately you'll seize everything. That coffee isn't just coffee when you've imagined never tasting again. That boring commute becomes a miracle when you've imagined being bedridden. That difficult conversation becomes a privilege when you've imagined being unable to speak. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. So look for it. Every morning, look disaster in the eye before it looks at you. Dance with loss before it asks you to dance. Make friends with worst-case scenarios before they make enemies of you. Your comfort zone isn't protecting you, it's setting you up for devastating surprise. But when you start each morning by psychologically losing everything, you become psychologically capable of losing anything. You become anti-fragile, growing stronger from imagined destruction, building resilience from rehearsed ruins. The most powerful person in any room is the one who's already lost everything in their mind and chose to show up anyway. Tomorrow morning, become that person. Lose it all before breakfast, then spend your day like someone who knows what they have, because they know what it feels like to have nothing. Number 4, the sovereignty declaration. Every morning, there's a silent coup happening in your consciousness. Your phone is trying to overthrow you. Your obligations are staging a rebellion. Your habits are voting you out of your own mental presidency. And you're letting it happen because nobody taught you the morning ritual of sovereignty, the daily declaration that you and you alone rule the empire of your mind. Epictetus, born in chains, discovered something that shattered Roman philosophy. No man is free who is not master of himself. But mastery isn't achieved. It's declared every morning, out loud, to the universe and anyone brave enough to listen. The Stoics didn't hope for control. They claimed it violently, verbally, before the sun had a chance to suggest otherwise. Tomorrow, before you check a single notification, before you acknowledge a single obligation, stand in your room like an emperor addressing your senate and declare your sovereignty. Not whisper it, declare it. I am the sole authority in my mind. I am the only voter in my decisions. I am the undisputed sovereign of my reactions. Say it like you're declaring war on every external force that thinks it owns shares in your consciousness. The world has trained you to wake up as a peasant in your own kingdom. You check your phone like checking in with your master. You review your obligations like reading your marching orders. You accept your mood like accepting weather, as if you have no say in the climate of your own soul. This is the greatest lie ever sold, that you're a passenger in your own existence. But sovereignty isn't just declared, it's defended. Every morning choice is either an act of sovereignty or surrender. That notification you check, you just handed your crown to an algorithm. That mood you accept, you just let chemistry override your crown. That excuse you make, you just abdicated your throne to circumstances. The ancient Stoic emperors had a morning ritual called salutatio, the morning greeting where they reminded everyone who held power. But the greeting that matters isn't to others, it's to yourself. Greet yourself as the sovereign you are. Remind your fears who makes decisions here. Inform your habits that they serve at your pleasure. Tell your circumstances that they're advisors, not rulers. You want to know why your life feels out of control? Because you haven't claimed control. Not hoped for it, not worked toward it. Claimed it, like a conqueror claims territory, like a sovereign claims their throne, like someone who understands that every morning is a revolution, and you're either the revolutionary or the overthrown. Number 5. The practiced betrayal. Someone will betray you today. Maybe it's your body failing when you need it most. Maybe it's a friend choosing themselves over you. Maybe it's your own discipline crumbling when temptation whispers. The Stoics knew betrayal was breakfast, served daily, guaranteed. So they practiced being betrayed every morning, building immunity to disappointment before disappointment arrived. Marcus Aurelius started each day listing the ways people would fail him. Begin each day by telling yourself, "Today, I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." This wasn't cynicism. This was psychological vaccination. He was injecting himself with small doses of betrayal so the real thing couldn't poison him. Tomorrow morning, practice being betrayed. Imagine your most trusted person lying to your face. Imagine your body giving out during your most important moment. Imagine your own mind sabotaging your best intentions. Feel the sting, taste the surprise, then realize you're still standing. The betrayal you imagined didn't kill you. The real one won't either. But here's the twist that will revolutionize your mornings. Practice betraying your old self. That comfortable identity you've been protecting, betray it. Those limiting beliefs you've been loyal to, abandon them. That story about why you can't, shouldn't, wouldn't, commit treason against it. Become a traitor to your own limitations. The person you were yesterday expects loyalty from the person you are this morning. They expect you to honor their fears, maintain their habits, protect their excuses. But growth is betrayal. Evolution is treachery. Every morning you have to choose loyalty to who you've been or betrayal in service of who you're becoming. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and seeks the old." But he wasn't talking about staying the same. He was talking about betraying the new person you became yesterday to become newer still today. Constant betrayal of comfort, perpetual treason against stagnation. The most loyal person you know is probably the most stuck. Loyalty to old versions of yourself is a prison decorated with familiar furniture, but betrayal, strategic, morning practiced betrayal of your own limitations. That's the key to every locked door in your life. Number 6. The violence of silence. Silence isn't peaceful, it's violent. It's where your demons come to wrestle, where your truth comes to scream, where your potential comes to demand answers you've been too noisy to give. The Stoics knew morning silence isn't meditation, it's confrontation, raw, brutal confrontation with the person you're terrified to meet, yourself, unfiltered, undistracted, undefended. Seneca locked himself in soundproof rooms. Marcus Aurelius wandered empty palace halls before dawn. Epictetus sat in darkness so complete it swallowed sound. They weren't seeking peace, they were seeking war. War with their own mental noise. War with the comfortable lies that need constant chatter to survive. War with the weak voice that only speaks when the strong voice is silent. Tomorrow morning, I want you to sit in violent silence. Not peaceful silence, violent silence. The kind that makes your skin crawl, the kind that makes you want to reach for your phone like a drowning person reaches for air. Sit in it until your mental demons get so uncomfortable they start confessing. Sit until your excuses run out of places to hide. Sit until the real you has no choice but to speak. In that violence of silence, you'll hear things that will terrify you. Dreams you've murdered, promises you've broken, potential you've poisoned. The silence will show you exactly who you are when nobody's watching, when nothing's distracting, when nowhere's safe from yourself. Most people can't handle 60 seconds of this violence. That's why most people never change. But if you can survive the violence of morning silence, if you can sit there while your comfortable self gets beaten to death by your capable self, something miraculous happens. You'll hear a voice you've never heard before, not your parents' voice, not society's voice, not fear's voice, your voice, the one that's been gagged by noise your entire life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But he left out the price of admission. You have to survive the violence first. You have to let silence murder your false self every morning. You have to become comfortable being uncomfortable with yourself. The world fills your morning with noise because silence would overthrow governments of the mind. Your phone screams notifications because silence would execute your addictions. Your thoughts race because stillness would reveal you're running from yourself. But in the violence of morning silence, revolutions begin. Number 7. The cruelty compass. Life is cruel. Not sometimes, always. It's cruel in its beauty that fades, cruel in its love that dies, cruel in its time that steals everything. The Stoics didn't pretend otherwise. They built their entire philosophy on navigating cruelty, not avoiding it. Every morning they calibrated what I call the cruelty compass, deciding which cruelties to accept and which to inflict upon themselves. You think kindness is always good? Tell that to the kindness that keeps you weak. You think comfort is always pleasant? Tell that to the comfort that's rotting your potential. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is be kind to your current self. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is be cruel to your limitations. Cato. The younger practiced morning cruelty like others practice morning yoga. He'd walk through Rome wearing rags despite his wealth, inviting mockery. He'd go hungry despite abundant food. He'd speak truths that made enemies despite wanting friends. Why? Because he understood. If you don't choose your cruelties, life chooses them for you. And life has terrible taste in cruelty. Tomorrow morning, be strategically cruel to yourself. Not masochistically, strategically. Be cruel to your need for approval by doing something nobody will applaud. Be cruel to your addiction to comfort by choosing the harder path when two roads diverge. Be cruel to your ego by admitting a truth that makes you small. This isn't self-harm, it's self-surgery, removing tumors of weakness without anesthesia. The paradox that will shatter your understanding. The people who are cruelest to their own limitations are the kindest to others. The people who never challenge themselves become cruel to everyone else, bleeding their unprocessed pain onto innocent bystanders. But when you're strategically cruel to your own weaknesses every morning, you become incapable of accidentally cruel to others. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." But he was being polite. What he meant was, chosen cruelties create unchosen strength. Every morning you must decide, will you be cruel to your potential by staying comfortable, or cruel to your comfort by growing? There's no third option. Cruelty is mandatory. The only choice is direction. The morning asks you a cruel question. Will you disappoint your potential or your comfort? One of them will suffer today. One of them will feel the cruelty of neglect. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose before life chooses for you. Number 8. The dangerous question. Every morning you ask safe questions. What should I eat? What should I wear? What time is it? But the Stoics asked dangerous questions, the kind that could destroy their entire worldview before breakfast. Marcus Aurelius's morning pages weren't affirmations. They were interrogations, brutal cross-examinations of his own soul. Tomorrow morning, ask yourself the question you're most terrified to answer. What if everything I believe about myself is wrong? Not just slightly off, completely, devastatingly, hilariously wrong. What if you're not who you think you are? What if your limitations are lies? What if your strengths are weaknesses? What if your entire identity is just a story you tell yourself to avoid the dangerous truth? Epictetus taught, it's impossible to learn what you think you already know. But people misunderstand this. He wasn't talking about knowledge. He was talking about identity. The most dangerous thing you can do each morning is question who you think you are. Because if you're wrong about that, you're wrong about everything. The dangerous question isn't meant to be answered, it's meant to detonate, to blow up the comfortable constructs you've built around yourself. Every morning, you wake up wearing yesterday's identity like armor. But what if that armor is actually a prison? What if the very things you're protecting are the things destroying you? Ask yourself, what would I do today if I discovered I'm actually capable of everything I've said I can't do? Feel your nervous system revolt. Feel your ego scramble for safety. Feel your excuses arm themselves for war. That reaction? That's the sound of lies dying. That discomfort. That's truth being born. Seneca wrote letters to himself asking, what if I'm the villain in my own story, not the hero struggling against circumstances? The villain, creating the very circumstances I claim to hate. The saboteur of my own happiness, the assassin of my own dreams, the enemy I've been looking for. What if? The dangerous question changes based on what you're avoiding. What if success would actually be easy for me? What if I'm already enough? What if my biggest fear is my biggest lie? What if the thing I'm running from is the thing I'm supposed to become? Each question is a key, but you have to be dangerous enough to turn it. Most people spend their mornings reinforcing who they were yesterday. But transformation requires daily identity destruction. The dangerous question is your morning demolition crew, tearing down who you were to make space for who you're becoming. Number 9. The philosophy of morning war. Peace is a lie sold to keep you weak. Every morning, you wake up in a war zone, not against others, but against entropy, against mediocrity, against the gravitational pull of average. The Stoics knew this. That's why they called morning preparation armatura, the armoring. Because you don't dress for the day, you armor for battle. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations in peaceful gardens. He wrote them in military camps, surrounded by death, disease, and betrayal. His mornings weren't meditation, they were military briefings with himself. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. This wasn't pessimism, this was reconnaissance. Know your battlefield before you enter it. Tomorrow morning, declare war. Not on people, on patterns, on the automatic responses that make you weak, on the comfortable choices that keep you small, on the seductive whisper that today can be just like yesterday. Stand in your room like a general addressing troops and identify your enemies: procrastination, comfort, fear, distraction. Name them, study them, plan their destruction. But here's what nobody tells you about morning war. You're fighting on two fronts. There's the war against external chaos, the demands, the interruptions, the energy vampires. But there's also the war against internal surrender, the voice that says you're too tired, too weak, too late to fight. Most people lose the internal war before the external war even begins. The Stoics had a morning battle cry: obstacles become the way. Not obstacles are the way. Obstacles become the way. Meaning, you have to make them the way. You have to transform resistance into assistance. You have to alchemize opposition into opportunity. Every morning you must choose. Will obstacles be your excuse or your entrance? Seneca taught that we suffer more in imagination than reality, but he missed something. We also surrender more in imagination than reality. Every morning you're pre-surrendering to battles that haven't happened, accepting defeats that haven't occurred, negotiating with enemies that haven't attacked. The war is lost in your bed, won in your decision, fought in your first hour. The morning warrior doesn't seek conflict but doesn't flee from it either. They understand that growth is war against who you were yesterday, that success is war against easier options, that fulfillment is war against empty comfort. And wars aren't won by peaceful people. They're won by those who wake up armed with intention, armored with discipline, aimed at victory. Number 10, the resurrection ritual. Every night you die. Your consciousness dissolves. Your identity evaporates. For hours, you cease to exist in any meaningful way. The person who went to sleep is gone, murdered by unconsciousness. But every morning something impossible happens. You resurrect. Not metaphorically, literally. You return from the void, reassemble from nothing, rise from your own death. The Stoics called this anabiosis, the return to life. But most people waste their resurrection. They stumble from death into habit, from void into routine, from non-existence into unconscious existence. They resurrect into the same life they died from. What's the point of coming back from the dead if you're going to live like you're still buried? Tomorrow morning, perform the resurrection ritual. The moment consciousness returns, before you move, before you think, recognize what's happening. You're returning from annihilation. You've been nowhere, been no one, been nothing. And now? Now you get to choose who to resurrect as. Not who you were yesterday. That person is dead. Who you'll be today. This new person being born from yesterday's ashes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You've lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. But he meant this as a morning practice, not a one-time realization. Every morning you've already died. The question isn't whether you'll live, it's who you'll resurrect as. The resurrection ritual has 3 parts. First, acknowledge your death. Feel the weight of where you've just been, the nothingness you've returned from. Second, choose your resurrection. Decide not just what to do, but who to be. Third, act immediately on that choice, because resurrection without action is just another form of death. Epictetus, the slave philosopher, understood resurrection better than anyone. Every morning, he woke up legally owned but spiritually sovereign. He couldn't change his circumstances, but he could choose his resurrection. He could decide whether to resurrect as a victim or a philosopher, as a slave or a sage, as broken or unbreakable. You've been practicing dying your whole life. Every night, you rehearse non-existence. But have you been practicing resurrection? Have you been intentional about who you become when you return? Have you realized that every morning is a cosmic second chance, a universal do-over, a divine reset button that most people never push? Tomorrow, push it. Resurrect as someone who deserves the miracle of consciousness, someone who honors the impossibility of existence, someone who understands that every morning is a resurrection and every resurrection is a choice. The morning doesn't care about your excuses. It arrives anyway, indifferent to your readiness, immune to your complaints, unstoppable in its invitation to transformation. These 10 practices aren't just habits, they're revolutions, each one designed to overthrow the government of your limitations and install the sovereignty of your potential. Marcus Aurelius is dead, Seneca is dead, Epictetus is dead. But their mornings are immortal, living in these practices, waiting for you to embody them, to become them, to surpass them. They didn't create these rituals for their time. They created them for all time, for anyone brave enough to wake up as a philosopher warrior instead of a comfortable corpse. Tomorrow morning, you have a choice. Wake up as you always have, or wake up as you never have. Practice one of these rituals, then another, then another. Build your morning like the Stoics built Rome, not in a day, but daily, stone by stone, choice by choice, resurrection by resurrection. If this hits something deep, like this video, subscribe to become part of the morning revolution. Share this with someone who needs to wake up to their power. Comment below with your chosen practice. Drop this affirmation: tomorrow, I wake up dangerous.